Justice is an interesting subject. You may think you know what justice means, but do you really? Let's see what Aristotle, one of the greatest philosophers of all time, he could really think things through. He could. He wrote a great book called Nicomachean Ethics, which is right here. And in it he explores happiness. And also, to explore happiness, you need to look at tons of other things. You need to look at voluntary and involuntary actions, and you need to look at moral stuff and virtue. And you also need to look at justice. I think there's 10 chapters in this book. It's really good. And only like one of them is really about happiness and how you achieve it. The rest of it is the components of happiness, basically. And he says about justice. Justice, a moral state, such that it is in consequence. In it, men have the capacity of doing what is just, and actually doing it, and wishing it. So, according to Aristotle, justice isn't necessarily something that happens. Justice is a moral state. It's also a mental state, which is kind of like a moral state. Kind of, but not really. Well, yeah, I guess they are kind of the same, but not in the same way. A moral state is the state of being moral. But what is being moral? Let's look it up in the dictionary. I don't actually have a paper dictionary with me, so thank goodness for apps. Morality. Morality, there we go. Conforming to the rules of right conduct, moral or virtuous conduct. So, now we need to look up moral. Pertaining to or concerning with the principles or rules of right conduct, or the distinction between right and wrong. So, basically, being moral means knowing right from wrong and doing it. You know, you don't just murder people just because. Murdering people is wrong. It just is. That's one of the undisputable things. It's wrong, you know. There are exceptions to killing people, like in battle. You know, that's kind of something that needs to happen. But murder, that's another thing. And I'm not going to talk about all that, at least not at the moment, maybe later. But basically, knowing right from wrong, that's being moral. Also, to have justice, you need to want it. If you don't want something, you're not going to get it. And I'm not talking like physically. If you don't want a bad sweater, oh, you're not going to get it. No, I'm talking more about knowledge. If you don't want to know about astrophysics, you're probably not going to get to know about them, because it's just not something that you choose. It's not something that you want. So you need to want to be moral, to be just, to have justice. And also, he says that you need to actually do it. If you want justice, you need to be just. If you want justice for everyone, you need to show in your personal, like, day-to-day life that you want justice. So, it's like there's this continuum, lines right here about. And on this side you have cruelty. This is like Javert from Les Miserables. He's like, this is the law. If you break it, there's a penalty. This is like submissiveness. This is the wimp. He's completely wimpy. You do not want to be this guy. He's like, you see someone being insulted, you don't do anything. And, you know, they're being insulted pretty bad. That's submissiveness, and that's horrible. Oh, I don't like submissiveness. But right in the middle, you have justice. You don't want to be the wimp that doesn't want to deal out punishments and all that. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the absolutely cruel guy either. You want to be fair. Fair conduct. My definition of justice, it's the fair conduct between people, and if punishment is necessary, then the punishment is only to the degree of the crime committed. So you're not gonna, like, hang someone for stealing, like stealing a little candy bar. You're not gonna do that, but you're not gonna just give someone community service for murdering. I don't know. Mercy also plays a part in justice. You need to have mercy to have justice. You also need to have injustice, but that in a second. There's proper times to be merciful. There's improper times. Like Les Miserables, for instance. The Bishop Valjean steals his silver, his most valuable material possession, like physical possession. And then the bishop's like, oh, yeah, I gave it to him. He was merciful. He didn't hand Valjean over to the police. Why? I don't know. That's just the kind of person he was. And because he gave Valjean the silver and didn't sentence him to a lifetime in hard labor, then tons of other people were affected. If the bishop hadn't decided to just give Valjean the silver, the book, instead of being 1,200 pages, would be like 200. And that's mostly explaining about the bishop and what a great guy he was, and then, oh, he decided to be selfish. Well, okay. But you also need to talk about injustice if you want to talk about justice. Because there needs to be opposition, there needs to be an opposite. We wouldn't know what light was if we didn't have dark. Because we would have no perception of it. There's just no possible way that we can know about it. So, Aristotle says on injustice, he says, injustice, a moral state such that is inconsequence. In it, men do unjustly and wish what is unjust. So, it's also a moral state. So we know that there's good and bad moral states. You know, there's good and bad to everything. There's proper and improper times to everything. Moral states, it's basically, okay, I guess a moral state is how you perceive right and wrong, because right and wrong is different for everyone, based on your circumstances at that moment, kind of how you grew up, maybe tradition, things like that. It's all relative, and you have your own perception of it. And so, of course, there would be a moral state that is injustice, and one that's justice. It's like the scale thing. I don't really like the scale, though, because mercy comes into play, and that kind of messes things up. I don't know. I don't like the justice scale, but that's my opinion. Anyway. Also, he says that you wish injustice. Injustice is wishing injustice, you know. If you wish something, you're gonna get it. Like before, if you don't wish something, then you won't get it. If you wish something, then you will. Like, if you want to know about astrophysics, then you can go and learn about them. I'm talking about stuff like knowledge. If you want this amazing car, you might not get it. That's physical. I'm talking about mental and knowledge, knowing things. If you wish it, then you'll get it, because knowledge is unlimited. There's knowledge to everything, and anyone can access it. You just need to think about it. All that knowledge, everywhere out in the world, came from people thinking about it. So if you want to know about something, study all you can that's here right now, and then think about it. Think about all that you've learned, analyze it, whatever, and learn for yourself, you know. But anyway. Also, he says, what else does he say? There was something else. Oh, they do unjustly. For injustice to be there, you need to do injustice. That's kind of obvious, you know. But you need to actually do stuff for it to exist. Have you ever thought about that? That is really interesting. No good actions would exist if no one was good. That's interesting. Nothing good would exist if no one was good. So you need to actually do things for them to actually be there. That's so interesting to think about, wow. But another great philosopher, Mortimer Adler, he's a modern philosopher. I think it was the 50s maybe? I'm not sure. I think it was the 50s when he was doing his philosophical stuff. But he wrote lots of books. One of them I'm going to read out of. It's called The Great Ideas by Mortimer Adler. It's a great title. And as you might have guessed, it's about great ideas. And his definition of the great ideas is ideas that all other ideas are based off of. As you can see, it's a pretty good sized book. There's, 112 of them, I think? I'm not sure. 102, actually. There's 102 great ideas that he covers in here. In another one of his books, How to Think About the Great Ideas, he goes into depth. This is just like a brief skimming of them. In his other book, he goes into depth about each one. It's great. It's a really good book. Where was it? Oh, I don't know. I can't find it right now, but... So, justice. To have justice, you need to have injustice. To have justice, you also need to be moral. To be moral, you need to have virtues. And virtues are like the principles you live by. That's my definition of virtues. Like patience, that's a virtue, you know. Also, you need to have action to have justice, and you need to want it. You need to consciously want it. Another thing Aristotle talks about in that book, Nicomachean Ethics, is thought. Conscious thought and kind of subconscious thought, I guess. But he just talks about what thoughts are conscious, what aren't conscious. I can't remember the term he uses. Oh, it was such a good term though. But to have justice, you need to have the conscious thought, I want to be just. And I think that's what sums everything up. The want to be just. Because if you want something badly enough, you're going to get it. The car, if you want it badly enough, you are going to save up money and get that car. It's just how things work. It's how we humans naturally work. We want something, we go and get it. And that's what everything is about. Wanting and working hard to get it. So, if you want justice, you'll get justice. But make sure it's really justice.